When did you get into Palantir, and why is it something that you're so passionate about in terms of making content and contributing within an entire community?
So I 6 years ago, I would say, is probably when I first got introduced to Foundry specifically. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of applications, right? It was very bare bones. And I'm not sure if that's just how Palantir kind of just got bootstrapped into the commercial space, because I think we were one of the first few clients that Palantir kind of got working with. And so things changed. Like we were using certain applications and they changed. So that was a little bit frustrating because they're building it on the fly. But anyway, I had never had an experience like that before where uh, a group of software engineers would sit you in a room and say, okay, just use the product as if you were to be trying to solve problems on a day-to-day basis. Bring into the room for the next 2 hours something that you want to accomplish and see if you can accomplish it using this software. And so then we were trying to like struggle through and kind of build things. And then if they saw us kind of like sitting stagnant, they're like, why are you stagnant? What can we help with? What can we do? And so this kind of iterative process kind of happened for a week or two where we would get it into the room and trial it out. And um it was like, what the heck is kind of going on here? And then I had like these interviews with the four development engineers, and I would just sit there and I'd be like expecting, I guess, more hands-on love and like, this is how you use the product. And they were just like, set up straight up. The meeting started with, what are your problems day to day?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I never really thought about that. I'm like, well, this is like, no. Like, what are your problems? And I'd be like, okay, this. No. Like, what can't you do? Like, what if you could, in the simplest form, like, what are you trying to do, and how are you getting problems to get to that answer as quickly as possible? And it was like almost as if they were trying to teach you how to walk again,
Mm.
of like trying to get you from point A to point B as quick as possible. And so it was unlike that 6 months to a year was unlike anything I've ever experienced in terms of being able to, I guess, kickstart a process or be able to be involved in software creation. And I've been handed software, dozens of times. There's always, every 2 to 3 years, there's a new software, there's a new license we need to use, or there's a new, product that we need to use for this or that. And that was the most unique experience. And so I remember promising those guys, I was like, this is unlike anything I've ever done before. Nobody's ever really sat down, like nobody that creates, they're like, how can we make this like easier for you, more efficient, however, and get you to think in a way of data is paramount, and then what you're doing is really just trying to get from point A to point B, rather than this is the process, you have to follow the process. It's like that's been done for over 50 to 100 years, and it's just evolved slowly over time. It's like, no, erase everything you've ever known, point A to point B, how can we get you there as fast as possible? And it's like, okay, cool. And once I kind of realized and was shaped by that culture aspect of data and data first, I was like, if this company ever goes public, I'm buying into it. And
Mm.
and that was like where I really was like, this is unique. I've been using Microsoft products forever. I've been using Apple products forever. And never have I had Apple or Microsoft sit me down and say, how can we make your life more efficient? Like, how can we get you from point A to point B faster? Except if you're using Google Maps or something, but that's a different story.
Was there a culture shock in your organization when these four deployed engineers came in and really tried to teach you how to walk again? Was there a lot of resistance towards that, or was there more acceptance?
Uh, I would say it was 50-50, right? It wasn't like, oh, these guys don't know what they're talking about, but it was like, I think the fear was is they were giving up a lot of control to an extent. Like you had to basically say, hey, their culture's coming in to help right size our ship and move us in a certain direction and get rid of some of those old cobwebs that have been growing since the early 1900s. Um, and so you're kind of taking prehistoric systems that have been slightly altered and changed. One step will change here, another step will change there, and you're kind of saying, let's go from the ground up, reestablish everything from ground zero. And how would you do it then, and how would you make it most efficient, and also think about it from a computer and data engineering perspective rather than specifically petroleum engineering or reservoir engineering or geology or geophysics sort of perspective. And that was good and bad, right? Because you have, as always with if you're making progress in any organization, you're always going to have normal culture clashes, right? We have
Right.
it even just in normal spirited debates amongst our own internal engineers. You know, somebody has a different perspective about X, Y, or Z, and they might be less experienced or more experienced, or, you know, and so everyone has their kind of thought process, and there's, generally speaking, no one way answer. I think the big difference between the two organizations was one came from like a very, I don't want to say hands on ish perspective, but this is the way we've been doing things for 100 years. How are you wrong? Versus, hey, you're thinking about it from a data perspective. It honestly made me think, like, why couldn't Google come in and run our company and be able to do it well? Or why wouldn't anybody that also has like a very good data analytics perspective or a way to manipulate data from a software engineering perspective come in and be able to run our company? And I
Right.
think that that was pretty scary for people to be like, is this, you know, are we getting sold? Are we getting bought? You know, what is this? It's like, no, we're just partnering with Palantir. And that was a nice, refreshing sort of change. But
Did
there
you did
was
you ever
some,
go ahead, finish the lessons?
yeah, there was a lot of, I guess, headbutting, but I think eventually we would give and take, right?
Did you ever feel, just piggybacking off that, that they were going to replace your job? Did you ever feel an existential threat, or did you ever feel they were just trying to help us?
No, I was always I always felt in control.
Mm.
So I mean, while they were simplifying things, it was like I was the one still clicking the buttons. I was the one still kind of putting up the guide rails to get from point A to point B. And I'm still the one attending the meetings. I'm still the one that's, you know, still the brain that's operating everything. And I'm still, it's like using a fancier calculator.
Right.
It's you know, you're not ever going to be replaced. I think it's just the efficiencies in your, you know, usage is going to be more efficient and more valuable, right? It's like going from a calculator to then using Microsoft, uh, you know, operating system to now being in this operating system specifically focused around data. It's going to be a lot more efficient and focused comparatively to, you know, the computers or the operating systems that we used in the 90s and the early 2000s and 10 years ago.